Despite enduring a consistent stream of disapproval throughout my life, I persevered because, above all, I am a mother. I firmly believed that safeguarding my child until they reached independence was my solemn duty. However, as Sam donned the cap and gown for high school graduation, a profound shift occurred within me. The relentless efforts I had exerted, regardless of the disdain and resentment directed my way, finally reached a breaking point. On that pivotal day, I made the decision to leave my family behind. Despite my persistent efforts to be accepted, I had come to realize that I could no longer tether myself to a role that had constrained me for far too long. Sam, on the other end of the phone, seemed stunned by my unexpected declaration. It was the first time I had stood up for myself after enduring incessant criticism. Despite his uncertainty about how to respond, it no longer mattered, for we were no longer a family. I am Maya, a 45-year-old housewife who had lived with my husband Luke and our son Sam. Sam, at 18, was on the cusp of high school graduation, a milestone that should typically evoke celebration. Yet my genuine happiness eluded me. The reason lay in Sam's increasingly challenging attitude, evident in everyday interactions. While folding laundry one day, Sam confronted me with a demand about a missing shirt, accusing me of stealing it. Despite promptly returning it, Sam's response was one of anger, criticizing my efficiency. His aggressive words cut deep, and my attempts to apologize were met with satisfaction, but also with a warning. He declared that further provocation would lead to expulsion from the family. This tumultuous relationship with Sam had its roots 13 years ago, when he was just 5. It was then that he began using foul language towards me, marking the beginning of a challenging phase that seemed to persist over the years. I've been through it too. Luke would often console me when I sought his advice. Indeed, boys sometimes imitate the slightly villainous characters they encounter in cartoons. Thus, I took it upon myself to monitor and gently correct Sam's behavior, mindful not to be too harsh. However, despite my efforts, Sam's conduct only deteriorated over time. Expressions of gratitude became rarer than his outbursts, and meaningful conversations as a family became increasingly elusive. As time marched on, Sam reached the age of 18. 3 days ago, I inadvertently overheard a conversation between Sam and Luke, discovering that Sam intended to pursue college after high school graduation. He hadn't consulted me about his future plans at all, instead relying solely on Luke. Sam and Luke had always shared a strong bond, often spending time together. Perhaps, I mused, it was easier for men to communicate with each other. I longed to be treated as a valued member of our family by Sam. I yearned for the warmth and closeness that defined a proper family life. The pain of being pushed aside by both Sam and Luke cut deep, as if my heart was tearing apart. It wasn't solely Sam who distanced himself from me. Luke's attitude had also grown harsh. "Mia, you're really foolish," she criticized. "Look, there's dust over there. Can't you fulfill your duties as a housewife properly?" In the beginning, after we married, Luke and I shared household responsibilities. He used to remind me, being a housewife doesn't mean you have to shoulder all the household chores, especially after Sam was born. But as Sam's behavior worsened over the past 13 years, so too did Luke's treatment of me. I came to the stark realization of how challenging parenting truly was. There were numerous instances when my plans fell apart, leaving me feeling disheartened. In the beginning, Luke actively participated in parenting, but over time, he gradually withdrew, ceasing to intervene and even neglecting household chores. Attempting to discuss my feelings with him only resulted in implications that I wasn't putting in enough effort. His harsh words cut deep. "You can't even clean properly. Have you not grown as a wife over the years? Do you lack learning ability?" Apologizing and promising to try harder seemed futile, as Luke insisted that my efforts were never enough. The weight of his disapproval, combined with the stress of strained relations with Sam, made me feel like I was on the verge of collapse. For 13 years, I endured, constantly reminding myself that I was a mother and a wife, compelling myself to do what needed to be done. Even when exhaustion threatened to overcome me, I pushed myself to the limit, fearing that if I faltered, I would become utterly dispensable to Luke and Sam. As Sam's high school graduation approached, I learned about the ceremony date only 3 days prior. In the midst of daily chores, Luke casually asked about the attire for the ceremony. I confessed my ignorance, not knowing the date yet, and he informed me that Sam had shared it a week ago. Once again, I found myself excluded, left to face the painful reality that had become my daily existence for the past 13 years. Unable to recover from the shock, I lowered my gaze when Sam, with a day off from school, emerged from his room. His comment about my mood only intensified the ache, though it was he who had failed to inform me about the graduation date in the first place. The ceremony was just 3 days away, and the sense of exclusion lingered, casting a heavy shadow over my heart. "I hear you didn't tell me," I confronted Sam, my voice tinged with accusation. His heavy sigh made me feel like a nuisance. "So what? You're not going to the ceremony anyway, so why do you need to know the date?" His words caught me off guard, and I questioned why. "I never said I wasn't going to the ceremony," Sam replied sharply. "No, don't come. If an old broad like you shows up, you'll just make me the laughingstock. I can't stand the thought of you ruining my big day." His words left me reeling. Despite not being treated like family, I had always genuinely celebrated Sam's academic achievements. Now I wasn't even allowed to attend his graduation ceremony. "Stay away," Sam's words pierced my heart. It became clear that I was nothing more than a nuisance to him. Silenced by his harsh words, I realized that my heart had reached its limit long ago. On the day of Sam's high school graduation, Luke and Sam left for the ceremony. Sam had insisted that Luke be there, leaving me behind. In the past, I might have endured this reality, but those days were over. As soon as they left, I packed my belongings and departed for my parents' house. Convinced that I could no longer live as part of Sam and Luke's family, I planned to take a break and prepare to sever ties with them. I left a letter behind, mentioning the possibility of divorce and expressing my desire to live independently. Finding a reliable lawyer within 3 days was daunting, especially with the myriad tasks ahead, like preparing to sell the house. The house we lived in was actually inherited from my father, a well-known businessman in a certain industry. He had gifted it to us upon our marriage, clarifying that it belonged to him, not Luke or me. Understanding how trapped I had felt, my father would undoubtedly decide to sell the house if he found out, deeming it unnecessary. In the letter, I plainly stated that the house would be sold, advising Sam to gather his belongings and leave within a week. Despite my father commending me for this decision, I wanted to avoid any future complaints. As I concealed this information for now, my plan was to stay at my parents' house temporarily, searching for a new job, severing ties with my family, and allowing time for the wounds they inflicted to heal. Taking such a step required a considerable amount of courage. I believed I could make this decision because, upon hearing my story, Dad turned red in the face and vehemently expressed his outrage at how they had treated me. It was a stark reminder of how much I owed to my father. After a day like that, while relaxing at my parents' house, my mobile phone signaled an incoming call. Although I suspected it was Sam, I checked anyway, confirming my expectation. Perhaps he called to address my absence as mentioned in the letter. Honestly, I had no desire to engage in conversation. Having endured being treated as less than family for so long, I lacked the generosity to deal with Sam. However, I recognized the importance of settling the past. If I continued to run away, I would be burdened with an unresolved heart, and I deserved closure for the mistreatment I endured. "Hey, where are you? Do you think you can just leave a ridiculous letter and be forgiven? Where are you? Come back home right now." Sam's voice echoed loudly through the phone as soon as I answered. His tone was tense and filled with panic, understandable given the shocking discovery upon his return from the graduation ceremony. Instead of finding the mother he always paraded, he was confronted with a letter detailing the sale of the house and other distressing news, likely ruining his graduation day. Despite myself, I couldn't help but smile at Sam's desperation. However, he was too consumed by anger to notice. When I responded, "Who are you?" Sam appeared confused by my words but soon started laughing, attempting poor acting to trap me. His unpleasant words and attempts to blame and criticize me couldn't mask the slight tremble in his voice, revealing that he, too, was out of his depth. Recognizing his strategy, I decided to respond calmly. I don't have a family, though. Oh, I have parents and a brother, right? But you're not my family, are you? What are you talking about, Mom? Me and Dad are your family, right? Have you lost your mind? As I said, I don't have a family. I kept treating Sam as a stranger. Sam and Luke are not my family. If they were, they wouldn't have treated me that way. Family is supposed to support and help each other. If a family member is in trouble, it's the family's role to support them. Sam and Luke neglected that. They treated me terribly for 13 years, claiming it was normal. I'm surprised I lasted 13 years, but it was out of a sense of duty for having given birth to Sam. Even if I wasn't treated like family, the fact that I gave birth to Sam doesn't change the fact that I'm his mother by blood. It is unshakable. So I decided to wait until his high school graduation. I kept telling myself that it was the right time to cut ties with Sam. I even hoped if Sam changed his attitude towards me by graduation, I might abandon the idea and continue as a family. But Sam didn't meet that expectation. Recalling Sam's attitude 3 days before the graduation ceremony, it was clear, so I felt justified in taking an appropriate stance. Sam is no longer my family, so I don't owe him the treatment of one. Continuing to treat him as a stranger, Sam finally seemed to understand my intentions and began to speak. Stop this pointless act already. We are family, aren't we? Parent and child, so please listen to me. What's with that letter? Are you serious about selling the house? That can't be true, right? Because you are our family. We're not family, I responded firmly. He seemed anxious about the house being sold, but I was serious enough to leave that letter. Even if Sam begged, I had no intention of changing my mind. Please tell me it's a joke. If we lose that house, where will we live? I didn't even know it belonged to Grandpa. I always thought it was Dad's. I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't call again. My voice remained cold and distant. No matter how much he pleaded, I wouldn't indulge him anymore. As I persisted in acting like a stranger, Sam finally reached his limit and said, I'll hand it over to Dad, then called Luke over. After a while, Luke came on the phone. Mia, where are you? Leaving such a letter. Come back home now. Luke's voice was filled with anger. He must have been unable to accept what I did. Silent, Luke continued, stop playing around. Do you think you can do this to your family and be forgiven? Luke was speaking rapidly, and I could hear Sam's voice in the background encouraging him. Both seemed angrier than I thought, but it no longer mattered to me. I was no longer their family. Enough already. I am not your family, am I? After ignoring me as a family member for 13 years, you can't expect me to act like one now. My words were harsher than I expected. I couldn't forgive their selfish actions. I tried to be a family with them, but for 13 years they never treated me as one. Always left out, how lonely and painful it was, how often I wished to be treated as family. That wish was never granted. But I couldn't easily give up. I endured for 13 years, trying to make it work as a family, as Sam's mother, and this is the result. A dry laugh escaped me, thinking about this pathetic outcome. They never respected my feelings, never accepted them. No matter how much I cared for them, they never cared for me. Yet now, when it's inconvenient for them, they say we're family, something they never meant, trying to bring me back. The convenience of it all made me feel nauseous. Why did I endure for 13 years for these people? Even feeling responsible as a mother doesn't justify being treated like this. I regret not being kinder to myself. Could things have been different if I had been? Maybe there was a future where Sam, Luke, and I understood each other and were a happy family. But that's just a maybe. Now there's no future where that's possible because I no longer have any expectations or trust in Sam or Luke, even if they apologize now, wanting to be a family. I would never think of trying again with them. Enough already. I'm not your family anymore. I'm a stranger. You treated me like one for 13 years, and now what? Come back because we're family? Talk it out? Did you really think I'd say okay? No way. I spoke impulsively, words I never would have uttered before. Afraid of causing trouble, it kept flowing out and I couldn't stop them. That's it. I don't want to hear your excuses. I can't trust anything you say anymore. I absolutely can't see us continuing as a family. Write up the divorce papers. If you don't want to file them, I will. So send them to me and leave the house quickly. You wouldn't want to trouble strangers, right? But stop making excuses and get ready. Give up. Goodbye. I cut off Luke even as he tried to say something because I didn't want to hear anything from Luke or Sam anymore. After saying what I wanted, I hung up the phone. Luke was saying wait, but I ignored him. Then I blocked all calls from Luke and Sam, ignoring their persistent attempts to contact me. Even the home phone rang, but with my parents' permission, I made sure no calls from Luke or Sam could come through. Thus, I finally managed to cut ties with the family that had made my life miserable for 13 years. They tried to reach me through friends, but I kept hiding, avoiding any contact with them. Eventually, the divorce from Luke was finalized. Despite his repeated pleas of not wanting a divorce, he signed the papers without resistance when it came to court. The house, being Dad's property, was sold, and they had to leave. A friend told me that after the incident with me, they started fighting incessantly. Luke couldn't manage finances, leading to Sam's college fees being unpaid, and Sam had to give up his academic path and start working. As a result, Sam quit studying, and Luke quit his job. In shock, they now live in an old apartment, seemingly withdrawn. They're still looking for me, but I have no intention of ever showing my face to them again. Meanwhile, I found a job and moved out of my parents' house. Having experience as an office clerk before marriage, I managed well in my new job. Soon after, I found a new place, thanked my parents who had helped me so much, and moved out. It's a room in an apartment not too far from my parents' house. In my new home, I'm living happily now. Frankly, having no good memories of my family, I think I don't need anything like a family for a while. Being alone in this day and age is perfectly fine, so I plan to live a relaxed life on my own.